So in terms of the overview, we're going to go through timelines for the grant agreement process and just the overall grant project. We'll do a deeper dive into the grant agreement process, including the development of the scope of work and the budget, drafting up the contract agreement using a DEM template, signatures and certifications, and arriving at that fully executed document. Then we'll discuss the purchase order, and finally go through some key considerations of the project, including competitive procurement, the MBE, WBE requirements, and an update that bid documents we're asking will be submitted to DEM prior to being posted. What to do if grant amendments are needed, progress reports, and reimbursements. So for overall project timelines, we're going to begin developing these grant agreements over the next couple of weeks. We expect that that process will likely go through the end of calendar year 2024. And then we're anticipating that review and approval process that will get them fully executed. We're planning to complete that for all of the grant agreements during winter 2025 before the construction season begins, or the treatment season for aquatic invasive plants. If your project has a specific or urgent timeline, please reach out to let us know. We have a couple projects that are combining federal funding with state funding, and those projects, we've been working with them as the construction's already underway to have those contracts already squared away. So in terms of the grant agreement process, first, we're going to use the application that you submitted and the award letter that DEM provided to you as a starting point to develop that scope of work and budget. We have an example of what those blank schedule of payments and project milestones and the contract schedule and deadlines looks like from the template grant agreement. But this is going to form the core of the grant agreement document. So we expect that this will be some back and forth. We'd be happy to set up meetings with you to kind of go through and discuss the scope of work and the budget, so that we can get all of that information agreed upon and all set. And then Jose and I will take that information, we'll populate a DEM grant agreement template with all of that, and then submit it for DEM internal approval. And so usually our experience has typically been that the internal process will likely be about 4 to 6 weeks. It's reviewed by our contract coordinator. It's reviewed by our fiscal folks and our legal department. And once that has been complete, we receive a PDF of the contract that's ready for your signatures and certifications. When you receive that PDF document, please review and let us know if you identify any issues, and we can work with the pertinent section within DEM to have those updates made, and then we'd share an updated version with you. And once everything looks good and you're ready to sign and certify, you'd complete those applicable fields, send it back to DEM. There's a final review, and then it receives the director's signature, and that's when it's considered fully executed. We do have some updated templates that came out earlier this year that offer some nice functionality. One area is that they now allow digital signatures rather than just ink, so you'll have that option of which route you want to go for signing and certifying. And so once we have that fully executed document in hand, DEM will then request a purchase order from the Department of Administration. We have an example here of a PO that was issued for a no-cost extension for a previous BWRF project. And a very important note, under the state purchasing rules and requirements, in order for work to be reimbursed under a grant, it cannot begin until the purchase order has been issued by DOA. So any work that's been done prior to the issuance of that PO is at risk of not being eligible for reimbursement. And so along with that, with a lot of our revamped grant agreements, and we have an overall new process for federal grant administration. It's introduced a new term, the performance period, which you'll see reflected in our grant agreements, especially in that table that contains the milestones. So the performance period is the time frame where the grant work is completed, whether it's construction or if it's application of an herbicide for aquatic invasive plants. That is where the actual grant project is taking place. The performance period begins on the day that the purchase order is issued, and it ends on a date that will be included in the grant agreement. And it does not include the closeout period functions, which typically include reporting, final invoices, etc. So when the performance period is complete, there's a 30-day period for the grantees to receive and pay their invoices to contractors, consultants, whoever they had hired to complete the work. Excuse me. And then there's a 30-day period after that, another 30-day period for the grantees to then assemble the payments that they've made, proof of payment, invoices, documentation that the work was done satisfactorily, and submit that to DEM. And then finally, there's a 30-day period for DEM to review and process those requests. So typically the closeout period adds another 90 days onto the end of the performance period. And I'll note each of those dates will be spelled out in that table of the scope of work and budget page. Each one of those will have its own row in that table spelling out what the deadline is for that. And then segueing from the getting the grant agreement and purchase order all set, in terms of administration of the grant project itself, one of the most important considerations that we've found has been competitive procurement. So grantees who receive state of Rhode Island or federal funds are required to conduct competitive procurement when obtaining goods and services. Those competitive procurement requirements generally include utilization of the state master price agreement, the MPA, and or obtaining a minimum number of quotes, typically 3, but there may be some exceptions. In addition, for engineering services, qualification-based procurement will be required. And that is, I imagine that the municipalities who are here are familiar and have their own town-based requirements that should align with the state. But the qualification-based procurement requires requesting technical proposals first, reviewing those, scoring them, and then reaching out to the highest ranked technical proposal to try to agree on a price that's satisfactory for the budget and the work being done. And if that's able to happen, great, then you would go with that vendor. If not, if you're not able to reach an agreement on the price, then you'd move to the second highest qualified firm that responded, and then negotiate price with them, and so on. And you can find comprehensive information on all of the competitive procurement requirements through the Division of Purchases website. If you have any specific questions on the competitive procurement requirements as you're starting to get the grant project off the ground, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to assist. Hopefully, we'd have the answers offhand. If not, we can help you by contacting Division of Purchases to try to find the answer for your question. Oops. And so along with that, one of our new requirements for state grants is that we're asking BWRF grantees and all future grantees going forward to send their bid specifications to us prior to posting. The reason for this is we found that the some of the areas that have caused issues or challenges in the grant administration process, including competitive procurement, compliance with MBE, WBE requirements, that have really slowed projects down or caused issues when it came time to reimbursement. That information is tied to the bid documents themselves. So by sharing those bid documents with us, we're able to review, trying to make sure that those key components are compliant with Rhode Island rules and requirements. We can provide some feedback to you, and hopefully just to ensure that the entire grant process can be as smooth as possible. And in terms of MBE, WBE requirements, there had been an update to the statute. That was Rhode Island General Law 3714, 1 through 6, that increased the percentage of MBE, WBE participation in state-funded and state-directed projects. It previously had been 10%, but has now increased to 15%. And from the statute itself, it also requires that breakdown is a minimum of 7.5% of total project costs to a minority-owned business and 7.5% of total project costs to a woman-owned business. And all of that is governed and administered by the Division of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So I would recommend, if you have any specific questions on MBE, WBE compliance, that you'd reach out to DEDI. They'd be the best suited to respond to questions, and they also will be the agency tasked with reviewing your grants MBE, WBE utilization form, or if you're submitting a waiver request to them, they would be reviewing that. So we included a few links, as DEDI does offer a MBE, WBE business directory search, as well as links to where you can access their utilization form and their waiver request process. In terms of signage and public acknowledgement, all media announcements, signage, reports, and other materials that are produced for public consumption, either printed or electronic, must recognize DEM via the BWRF. If you have any specific questions on those, like in terms of requirements for signage or including language in any written materials, please reach out to Jose and I. We can work with you on that. This has been it's been a requirement since the BWRF started, but it's been one that's been kind of shaky in terms of our participation. But we'd really like to have all of the grants really publicize the great work that's being done to show Rhode Island, what's being done to assist with water quality improvements, flood mitigation, habitat improvements, and so on. And then in terms of amendments, so one important note, time extensions are not automatically given for grant projects. There'll be a contract end date on every grant agreement. And if the project will need a time extension, once you realize that, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to work with you to create an amendment contract that'll provide a no-cost extension. We've been working agency-wide on streamlining that process. And we have that no-cost extension amendment down to a one-page or so letter that only requires I think a signature, the prime signature, and one witness, and also has a shorter approval timeline. So I think that's been a great improvement in the process, since a lot of most of the projects that I've worked with across grant programs typically do require at least one no-cost extension, just because of the nature of construction projects and that supply chains have still been impacted since the pandemic and other things that it takes a while to get these projects done. In addition, another item that we're requiring for this round of BWRF grants centers around progress reports. We're going to be creating a progress report document that we're asking grantees to complete every 6 months during the performance period, just to give us an update of where the project is. To try to streamline the process as much as possible for everyone, we're going to make this progress report a one-page fillable PDF that you'd be able to complete electronically and email to us. Primarily looking for where progress has been made in the grant project, where challenges have occurred, and or if you forecast anything coming up in the grant administration process for the project. And then the last area that we wanted to cover here was for reimbursements. These are reimbursement-based grants. So the work would be completed by the contractor, consultant, or directly by the grantee. And then you would then turn around with the documentation of payments, proof of payment, and backup on the work that was done, and submit that along with a reimbursement request document to DEM, which would be reviewed and then processed, and then you'd receive your reimbursement payment. There's a little bit of flexibility in terms of building in how the reimbursements will be done into the grant agreement documents. A lot of our smaller projects typically are a single payment after the entire project is completed. Some of the larger projects will have a reimbursement payment take place after each major phase of the project is completed. And in some cases, where it makes the most sense, we've gone with a quarterly or monthly reimbursement basis. It's a state policy that reimbursements are not more frequent than a monthly basis. I believe with that, those were the kind of the key areas that we wanted to cover. We'll open it up for general question and answer in just a moment. But I want to say, going forward, at any point in the grant project process, if you have any questions on the grant agreements or administering your grant project, please reach out to Jose and I. We'd be best suited to assist you with those. For any programmatic questions on the aquatic invasive species projects, the best contact is Katie DeGouche de Marzia. All right. And if anyone has any questions at this point, please feel free to unmute, or you can enter them into the chat, and we'll go through as we receive. Thank you, Megan. I think seeing as it's about 10:25 now, I'll plan to stay on for at least another 5 minutes. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free. If not, we'll be reaching out in the near future with the to begin working on the scope of work and budget, and to begin getting those grant agreements going.
Missed it.
Let's see. And from Carol, our grant is for just for plans to be drawn.
We are, excuse me, I'm Carol O'Donnell. I'm chair of the Bonnet Shore Fire District. So
Hello,
our
Carol.
grant is just to have plans drawn so that we can actually get different pricing on what we really need. Because we're kind of in a unique situation between a causeway, the road, a pond, water flowing into it. I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with it. So we're a little bit different than a full-fledged grant. We just have a partial. So what is your feeling? I know we're really only going to get into contract with plans. So should I still get bids to get these plans drawn, or can I go with the consultant that's been ushering us through a lot of this?
So I know, like, overall, we'll for general grant administration, we'll still develop a grant agreement, like for all of the projects. It'll just that one will be focused on the planning. Why don't we it'd be good to have some more information maybe on the nature of the consultant that you've been using, and maybe we can figure things out from there. Why don't I'll email you, and we can determine a good time to discuss and see what work the consultant has done to date, and what the best options would be to go from there.
Okay, that's great. I'll wait for your email. If I don't hear from you, I will email you and just put something together and send it to you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you. And thank you for this. This was great.
Sure, I'm glad to hear.
Well, I'm going to leave and we'll speak at another time.
Okay, sounds good.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too. All right. Well, I think it seems like the questions have wound down. If anyone who's still on thinks of anything, please reach out by phone or email to Jose and I. Be happy to discuss with you. And thank you everyone for joining. Hope that you have a great rest of the day, and we're excited to work with you on these grant projects.